I've talked quite a bit about Yieldmax funds on my channel in the past, and I try to stay very non-biased, but I think at this point I'm just completely done with Yieldmax ETFs. Especially with what we've seen happen to funds like MSTY, where its underlying stock, in this case MSTR, is down 60% off its all-time high and seems to continue dropping, resulting in a negative 49% 6-month return for MSTY. And that's including its distributions reinvested. This also means that if you were to have started investing into MSTY a year ago, you would not only be underperforming the S&P 500, but you'd be down over 48%. And that's also, again, including dividends reinvested. And we're also starting to see a similar situation with ULTY. With this recent volatility that we've seen in the growth sector, the total return for ULTY over the past 6 months is a negative 4%, with other red flags like a recent 1-for-10 reverse split. So needless to say, these funds, to me, are way too much of a headache. And at this point, like I said, I'm done with them and never looking back. But with all this being said, I wanted to go over a few dividend ETFs that I think are much more reliable and rock solid for a dividend portfolio. Now with this first one, especially if you're familiar with my channel, is one that I've talked about for years now. It's still one of my favorite monthly dividend ETFs, and probably will be for life. So I made it number 1, it's JEPQ. And I won't spend too much time talking about JEPQ because of how much I already have talked about it. But this is a NASDAQ covered call ETF that's currently paying a 9.4% dividend yield with monthly dividend payouts. Now with an ETF like this, you are of course sacrificing a lot of growth for those monthly dividends, but that's what a lot of dividend investors prefer anyway. And one of the best things about JEPQ, as well as the other ETF that I'll be talking about in this video, is they experience very little to no NAV decay, especially during bull market cycles. So JEPQ this year, not including dividends, is still up around 3%. And if we tack on that 9.5% dividend, the total return this year is over 12%, which is of course a lot better than a negative 49% return. So needless to say, JEPQ is a very powerful monthly dividend ETF that is continually growing and improving every year. This takes me to another one of my absolute favorite monthly dividend ETFs, which is very similar but does have its differences comparing it to JEPQ. But this is SPYI, or the NEOS S&P 500 High Income ETF. Now this is also a covered call ETF, but the biggest difference is that its underlying stocks and holdings are in the S&P 500 index rather than the NASDAQ. Now both JEPQ and SPYI are fairly new ETFs. They're only about 3, almost 4 years old. And SPYI is a lot smaller of a fund with a total of $6.4 billion in total assets, but it's currently paying a nearly 12% dividend yield. And again, same thing, you are sacrificing a good amount of capital growth for all that dividend income, but not including dividends this year, it's up just under 4%. So you still get a little bit of growth as the market rises over time. But the most important part is that there's hardly ever any NAV decay. And when there are drawdowns, they tend to be fairly insignificant. Plus, when the fund does drop in value, it gets cushioned a lot by those monthly dividend payouts. Now, one of my favorite things about SPYI is how consistent the dividend payments are. Since its inception around 3.5 years ago, it's paid a regular dividend ranging anywhere from 46 to about 56 cents per share. So this means if you had $100,000 worth of SPYI right now, every single month your dividend paycheck would be right around $1,000. And I don't know about you, but $1,000 in monthly cash flow would be pretty nice to have. There are, of course, fees associated with these funds, so it's going to cost you a little bit to own them. SPYI has an expense ratio of 0.68%. So again, if you had $100,000 in this fund, you'd have to pay a fee of about $680 per year. And JEPQ has a little bit lower of an expense ratio at 0.35%. So you are, in a way, paying to own these funds, but it's up to you to decide if it's worth it for all that monthly income that you'll be getting. So these ETFs are 2 of my favorite monthly dividend income funds that will probably remain my favorite for quite some time. But let me know what you think of these 2 ETFs and if you would possibly even still prefer Yieldmax funds over ETFs like these. And I will see you all next time.